Hello, hello, and once again you're back with us doing Cook for Victory, night number 6. My name is Maddie.
And my name is Millie, and tonight we are cooking at Cookery School at Little Portland Street.
If you don't know about me yet, I have been a pastry chef for over 10 years, and I've spent my last 3 years teaching here right at Cookery School.
I'm from London. I did my professional training here at Cookery School, and before that I was a private chef in Italy. And
our job over these 20 nights, we're on day 6 out of 20, so we are just under a third. I don't know why I did the maths. We are attempting to get you guys cooking for yourselves, nice simple kind of crowd pleasers that are easy, tasty, using mostly simple ingredients that you can find kind of everywhere, just showing you that it is possible to kind of make something cheap, delicious and nutritious with no additives, no preservatives, none of that.
And best of all, in an hour. So tonight we're going to make a delicious mac and cheese from scratch. And using the idea of making mac and cheese, we're going to make a slightly healthier version with some cauliflower cheese as well. So covering boiling pasta, making a bechamel or a white sauce, and also how to steam for the first time.
For the first time. And so our version of a bechamel sauce is easy, simple, delicious, and a bit a bit of a cheat bechamel, but it always comes out really, really awesome. So hopefully we'll ruin the stigma of a really difficult bechamel with you guys tonight. So I'm doing a little baby bechamel. So I'm doing once the recipe of bechamel.
For the cauliflower cheese.
For the cauliflower cheese.
Mac and cheese, we're doing a double recipe of bechamel, just so it's like lovely and saucy. You don't want to stinge on your bechamel.
You don't want to dry mac and cheese, definitely not. So we're both doing 2 different amounts, but they come to the same recipe. And the main thing that we want to instill in your mind tonight is that this all starts cold. So you can see we're not on the heat, we're not anywhere near the pan right now. We've got all our ingredients. We've got our neutral oil. So for us that is sunflower oil. We've got our flour. And I will say we're using just your regular Shipton Mill organic white. But that doesn't necessarily have to be that. We've done it with gluten-free flour.
Yeah.
It
but
soaks
also
up
if you
a
just
little bit more liquid.
Plain flour at home, that's perfect
plain
application
flour.
for this.
So this is something that you can change up if you need to. And we've got, of course, a little bit of nutmeg and salt, which I think is a classic. So take it away, Ms. Mill.
Yeah, so nutmeg, good with just about anything creamy, whether it's a sweet thing or a savoury, and really, really delicious. And actually pretty traditional, especially in the north of Italy. If you're making a bechamel for lasagna, gotta have the nutmeg.
Gotta have the nutmeg.
So in goes flour. So we've got equal parts flour to oil, but this is a volumetric measurement, so it's 4 tablespoons of each. So it might look slightly different each time, and that's fine. It won't make a massive difference in the end. So shake out your cups, and we're going to give this a whisk just until it's a nice smooth paste. So mine will look a little bit bigger because I'm doing a double recipe. But again, this scales very, very easily. You can do this with dairy-free milk, so you could do something like oat milk, works just as well. We've even done gluten-free, dairy-free,
We've done gluten-free,
and it works as well.
We've done it all.
So, gonna whisk out all the lumps at this stage, and you can see ours look pretty much the same. Mine's a touch thicker, but again, that's just because a tablespoon of flour will always look a tiny bit different, not a problem. And we're gonna whisk to each corner of our pan. Good one.
That was, I'm not gonna get your milk. That was me.
In goes, we can add our nutmeg in now, but you could also add it in a little bit later. It doesn't make a massive difference because it's all off the heat. I'm going to bring over my big old jug
of milk. I've got my 2 cups. This is very much subject to what you're doing. So we're going to use this amount of milk, but we might add more. We might add heaps more. We might add a little bit more. So start with the recipe that you've got, and then we can potentially add a little bit more later if we need it.
And importantly, don't dump in your whole jug of milk. We're just going to start with a little bit at a time, whisk it until it's smooth, and then keep adding more as we need it. And I know my jug drips quite a lot, which is why I've got it resting on my pot. And we are still off the heat. So traditionally, bechamel is made with butter, and in order to mix butter and flour together, you have to melt it, because butter is solid at room temp.
Yeah, and so it can be a little bit tricky. That's the I think a lot of people have been scarred by a bechamel that has split or it's got chunks of flour in there. And so the idea of this is, a little bit of the cheat is your oil is liquid
Cold.
at room temperature and it's all cold. So it's a lot easier to make sure that it's lump free.
So when you're adding it in, just go slowly at first, because as you mix it in, it'll become a little bit thicker like this. It'll kind of look a little bit ugly, but it will smooth out and become really lovely in the end. A little bit more.
And then once you get to a stage like I am at, I'm pretty happy, like my flour is almost, it looks like milk in here. There's nothing in there. So I'm going to go with the rest of it and just know that it's got no possible lumps that could happen, whereas Millie's got a little bit longer to go.
So the reason I haven't added the rest of my milk in is because I really want to focus on beating out the lumps just at this stage. So it should look smooth and glossy before you move on to the next stage. Add in some more milk. And basically at about halfway through your milk, you can start to add it much, much quicker.
So we've got a good amount of milk set aside to just play with the thickness once we've cooked it out completely.
So this is a good dish to not make with your last drops of milk.
Yes.
Just in case you need a little bit extra, you're then going to probably have to turn it out.
Because it is best with milk. We definitely don't want to be adding any water or anything.
So lumps are disappearing. So as soon as we put this on the heat, it's going to begin to thicken. And this is also why we like starting it from cold, because we have complete control over how lumpy it is. Basically, we don't want any lumps. But if we put this on the heat to start with and we start adding milk in, you're just going to have to be working really, really furiously to beat those out. Right, I'm almost there.
So I'm going to start mine, and again, we don't really want to blast it too high. It does take a little bit to start to heat up, because our milk, as per usual, is straight from the fridge, so it's quite cold. It's going to take a little while to get to at least even warm, to be honest. So we're going to put on, for us, I don't know, just above medium. So we're 10 out of 14, just to make sure that it's going to get hot in a reasonable amount of time. We're not going to be here for 10 years waiting for milk to get warm. But at some stage, what will happen is it does still have that flour, even though it has been smoothed out. That flour is going to start to cook, and so it will start to catch on the bottom of your pan, and that's when you kind of want to be there very, very happily, like whisking all the time. For now, you can kind of like leave it for a little bit, come back, leave it for a little bit while it's still really quite cold. But it's going to take, once it gets to a warm and above, you've got to be there watching it, giving it a good whisk, and it will basically go from liquid to quite thick very, very quickly.
Yeah, and when we stir it, and I just splash a little bit up the sides, you can see it just looks like straight up milk, not thick at all. And as it begins to thicken, it will start to coat the sides of the pot. So what we're looking for today is quite a specific consistency, sometimes called coating consistency, but you just do a very simple test with a spoon. If I dip this in, it just looks like milk. So clearly not thick at all. The coating consistency means it will cover the back of the spoon, and it should pretty much cover the surface, and you shouldn't really see any of the...
basically.
But at the moment, it's just like sheeted straight off, and now it's looking pretty transparent. So it needs to cook for a little bit longer. And we're going to be seasoning this with a little bit of cheese to make a delicious cheese sauce. So when we do that, we're going to be quite mindful of salt, because cheddar is full of salt. So we don't want to make it too salty when we do our seasoning. Now we're using induction, so it's heating only from the bottom. If you're using gas, it's going to heat and the flames will lick up the sides a little bit. So make sure your burner is adjusted so it's just covering the base. But if you're doing this on induction, you really want to scrape the bottom really hard so it's not catching and burning.
And hopefully tonight will be the first time we're introducing what uncooked flour tastes like. So we're going to taste this on either side. So we'll taste it just as it's starting to thicken, just to give you an idea of what the flour tastes like when it's uncooked. I'm hoping you guys will recognize it doesn't taste very nice. And then once we've cooked it out completely, you'll say, oh my gosh, that's so much better. And also it doesn't really taste like anything after that. It loses a lot of flavor once it's completely cooked. But a really good marker that it's cooked is it's very, very thick. You'll see this particularly if you're kind of coming in and out. So you want to be there pretty persistently, because it will go from 0 to 100 very quickly.
So on this whisk, for example, in our smaller pot, which will heat up quicker, you can already see lumps of flour beginning to form on the bottom. At that point, especially if you can see wisps of steam coming off, you want to be stirring this a little bit more frequently, just so it's not forming any lumps on the bottom.
Be here to help you.
Thank you.
So we started with kind of an initial seasoning. So we did our nutmeg. We don't have any salt just yet. Believe it or not, this will take a hefty amount of seasoning. So it is literally just flour, oil and milk with a little bit of nutmeg at this stage. So we don't want
you,
it. Yeah.
good pinch.
Yes, beautiful.
For me, a little bigger of a pinch, but we will be using cheese. So again, please be mindful of how much salt you add just at the initial stages.
Because we can always season it more, and we're thinking about what we're putting them with. So for example, mine is going with the steamed cauliflower, which is
Quite bland.
quite bland.
It's not going to be salted in the steaming stage because it's not being boiled. But our pasta water, we're going to salt quite aggressively. So with that one, again, you're just always being mindful of how you season things.
Yeah.
And your cauliflower cheese, in fact, you can always make touch on the saltier side just because your cauliflower is a little blander.
Yeah, very bland. And then
It's delicate.
yeah, and this is the majority of the flavour as well. So you want to make sure you get your bechamel right. I will say, if you're umming and ahhing, we always add the extra pinch. So if you are umming and ahhing, the extra pinch at the end will go miles between.
And an extra bit of nutmeg.
And an extra bit of nutmeg. Yes, yes, yes. That's a starting point for nutmeg, but this is going to be delicious by the end.
So once you make your bechamel, this is a slippery slope to being obsessed with nutmeg.
I can feel, I've just got my hand above it because I'm kind of seeing where it's at on the heat scale.
Millie's much warmer.
Is basically still cold, whereas mine is getting warm, which means it's going to be closing in on that point where you want to be here pretty presently, pretty like standing here, making sure it's not catching on the bottom, because as soon as those starches, so your flours, whatever you're using, as soon as they start to set, that's when you can potentially get catches and lumps on the bottom.
And I can see steam coming off yours now as well.
Yeah, so, and then it's pretty magic actually what happens. It goes from liquid to a
Zero
solid.
to hero.
Yeah, liquid to a solid in a very, very, very small amount of time.
And mine is also starting to thicken on the bottom. So if I check my whisk, I can see it's beginning to clump. So this is not the time to walk away. Got to start whisking quickly so it doesn't form any lumps.
And really, you're not just stirring with your whisk, you're using it to scratch. Yeah, really scratch the bottom of your pot.
And this is a good point if you have kettle, put it on full. So we're going to make a big pot of boiling water for our pasta. So good point to get that on. We've already brought ours up to the boil earlier just so it's going to boil quickly for us. But if you haven't done that, get a pot of water on to boil. Top tip, we will be salting it because we're making pasta. But if you are going to add salt, wait till it's boiled because it'll actually take much, much longer to boil
with the
once
salt
you've added the
already
salt in it. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, learned that the hard way. And secondly, we are going to bake both of these. Technically, the pasta will be mostly cooked. It will be al dente, and your cauliflower will be steamed. So all we're looking to do is get a really caramel top. So that means a nice high heat for your oven.
And even a grill. If you have a grill function, you can just set it on there because we're only looking to crisp it and just like very minimal cooking in the oven. Right, how are you doing?
I can actually start to smell ours, so it's starting to smell good, believe it or not. Even though it is just, this is a white sauce, like it's just meant to be delicious as it is. It's not supposed to taste like milk, it's supposed to taste like something that's creamy and lovely.
So another reason we don't use butter in this is we're going to use lots and lots of cheese. You wouldn't even taste the butter. And actually yesterday I tested this with a little bit of butter at home, just so I could know in my mind whether it actually made a difference. And you wouldn't taste the difference at all. Butter is quite expensive, so it's nice to use something like rapeseed oil or sunflower seed oil because you won't taste the difference anyway, especially with all that cheese and nutmeg layered on top. And it's a nice little sustainable swap to employ. And to be honest, making a butter at home was much more difficult. We teach kids how to do this here at Cookery School, and they do it every single time without fail. So it's much, much simpler to do it from cold than it is to start from melted foamy butter, adding in your flour and stuff,
and
even though it's traditional.
Much more likely to have oil at home as well. I will say we say neutral oil. If you use olive oil, boy, can you taste it. So this is, we're aiming for a neutral oil just to keep the flavour in, like the creaminess, the nutmegs and the salt and everything like that. If you use olive oil or something that has a really strong flavour, you will taste it, and it can potentially completely overpower your whatever you're cheesing.
Right, mine is beginning to thicken up. So I can see on the edge of the pot, it's starting to coat it really nicely, and it will go from nothing to very thick quite fast. So please don't walk away, keep an eye on it. I say that all the time, but especially with things like bechamel, they'll do nothing until they're thick.
But yours looks like condensed milk now, and actually mine's strange that you're doing
slowing
double.
down.
I know. I'm whisking too fast.
And even when I whisk it, if I go a little quicker, it's starting to leave those marks in the pot, which means it's getting nice and thick. It does look like condensed milk, you're right.
So if you are interested, so it's starting to thicken now. If you want to know what uncooked flour tastes like, now is a really good time to taste it because it will taste like uncooked flour 100% at this stage.
And it's getting that right kind of consistency. Looks pretty nice actually.
Beautiful.
This will continue to thicken because it's actually not fully thickened yet.
Completely
Given
cooked.
it hasn't come up to a boil yet, it is just beginning to thicken. This is a good sign that it's working, you know, it's hot, but it's definitely not fully cooked yet. So we're going to keep on whisking until it's lovely and smooth. So say the worst happened, I don't know, you had to, I always say answer a phone call, but you never know what happens. You have to do something and run off, maybe someone rings the doorbell. If it does get a little too thick and you get some lumps, you can stick blend it out or sieve it. But ideally, you're just watching the pot and it's perfect first time round. Oh, we got a bubble.
We got a bubble.
Once you've got one bubble, it is cooked. All you need to do is bring it up to a boil and you're ready to go. And then all we're going to do is season to taste and adjust for consistency. I've got some good bubbles.
I can't believe you beat me. I'm doing half your amount.
I've got a nice big
I've got
burner,
bubbles
that's
as well. And so now I'm going to give it just a little bit more, but we're good. So we've cooked out that flour. Like I said, starch is cooked 80, 85 degrees. So those bubbles means they definitely reach that temperature. If you're doing a massive batch, for some reason you're doing mac and cheese for 300 people, you will need to cook it for quite a long time to really make sure that flour is cooked out. So we're going to give us a little initial taste now, just to see. We went really bare minimum.
That is a lovely coating consistency, potentially a little on the thick side, so we'll probably add a little bit of milk. And I'll say for my one, which is going to be the mac and cheese version, it will continue to thicken in the oven with the extra starches from the pasta.
Yeah, so this is this thick as
now.
It's hot. So that's like, you know, freshly boiled, it's this thick. Imagine what it's going to be like when it's slightly cooled. So for us,
this already has begun to thicken.
It's already starting to thicken. So imagine you want to kind of have a loose, you don't want really hard set, you don't want to be slicing through your mac and cheese like a cake. A little bit looser is always a little bit better because as well in the oven it dehydrates it completely. So go loose, you know, get that extra milk in there. Yeah, loosey-goosey.
So this is looking pretty good, nice and thick. And tomorrow when we do our mushroom ragu, we'll do the exact same thing again, show you how to thicken a sauce as opposed to just making a sauce from scratch. And again, we'll be watching to make sure it doesn't get too thick because all of these will thicken as they sit and as they cook in the oven as well.
So now the ultimate test.
This is a good sign, it's looking glossy and smooth. It's what you want from a sauce ideally.
Oh, beautiful.
I know already I'm going to add a little bit of milk to this because it is pretty thick.
Yours is already very thick.
So I'm not going to start adding salt now because I'm just going to dilute the amount that I'm about to add. So
mine is quite tasting of milk at the moment, so I know that it's going to take a good pinch of salt, which I always talk about. Can I also have a little bit of milk? Thank you, ma'am.
So I've just added maybe 100 ml of milk just to thin it out a touch. And at this point, you don't necessarily need to reboil it because I'm not adding extra starch. But if for some reason your hand slipped and you added in an extra 2 cups of milk,
it could happen.
Never done that before, but you never know. You can make this even thicker by just making up a nice like
starch powder with water.
With a little bit of water, make it into a paste, and you can pour it in. Then you will have to reboil it because you've added more raw starches, and then you've got a re-thickened sauce.
I would also like to say, I walked away with mine still on the stove once, and it did get chunky. And if you give it a really, really, really good mix with a little bit of cold milk, it thinned out really smooth again. So it's kind of like it can come back from anything. This is really powerful stuff. It takes a lot to kill. So you can do almost anything to it, so long as it's seasoned quite lovely. It's going to be delicious. And I cannot stress enough, if it gets chunky, just whisk like your life depends on it, and it will come back around.
This is now like a really nice consistency. So I can just about see the messel beneath it, which means it's not too thick.
And I'm gonna
whereas before it was like a thick coat.
I'm going to aim for about the same thing. With the cauliflower, it's quite watery because we're going to steam it, and it holds a lot of water in itself. So I'm not going to take mine as thin as Mills, because I know that the cauliflower can sometimes leak a little bit of water. So I'm going to keep
you've also not got any extra starch from
exactly.
your
So I'm going to
cauliflower.
keep mine a little bit on the thicker sides, but I also am going to do a really good job of draining my cauliflower, because there's nothing, you don't want it to be watery after it's come out of the oven.
So I'm adding a little bit of salt to mine, because at the moment it's just like plain milk, and potentially a little bit of nutmeg.
I'm going to add a bit of nutmeg to mine just to start. So we started with, I think it's like a pinch or a quarter teaspoon or something. This is up to your
measure with your heart.
Yes, measure with your heart. This is up to your flavour palette. It's your mac and cheese. It's your bechamel. It's your choice.
I'm going to take some as well. I love nutmeg. So other things you can use nutmeg in, creme caramels, creme brulees, anything creamy.
Anything creamy.
Delicious.
Nutmeg is the perfect candidate as a partner.
And it's sort of like in terms of flavour, it's a little bit like a cousin of cinnamon. It's very warm and earthy. And actually, we looked at it the other night when we did soups.
Yes, in our
butternut
soup. Okay.
So we already use nutmeg. One more taste.
Again, I'm thinking about my cauliflower potentially being a little bit on the bland side in terms of, and it's going to be the majority of what's inside. So I'm going to go one more decent pinch of salt for mine, just to make sure that it's not like bland or washed out by the cauliflower at all.
Yeah, I think I will go one small pinch. I know I'm about to add a lot of cheese to this, so I don't want to make this too salty. And to be honest, once we've whisked in our cheese, you can always make it a little bit saltier, but you cannot take it away.
Absolutely.
And knowing, at least on my terms, I'm going to have slightly salted pasta going into my pot.
Yep.
So mine doesn't need to be quite as salty as Maddie's, because she's going to be using unseasoned cauliflower. So I'm going to pop this just on the hob, not on the heat, but just so it's out of the way. And I'll bring over my pot of water.
I've got milk absolutely everywhere.
You mucky pup. Yeah. So, to make pasta, we've done this once already, but a quick recap. Get yourself my hob has turned off. Get yourself a big, deep pot of water, and it must be boiling to cook your pasta. We're going to wait to add the salt when it comes up to a rolling boil. Got there in the end.
Rolling boil.
And when it has come up to a boil, then I'll add my salt. Some people say salty as the ocean. We're going to go like a good handful into our pot. So it's well seasoned when we add our macaroni. I'll bring that over. So we've got some nice white macaroni. They're kind of like little elbows, very cute, very small. They cook pretty quick. And we're actually going to go for undercooked for our macaroni. We're going to go for al dente, which just means a little to the tooth. So when we bite into it, it should have a tiny bit of a white ring, which means it's not fully cooked, which is good, because we're going to finish this in the oven. And ideally, it's a nice soft dish, but it shouldn't be mushy at all, because we're going to cook our pasta perfectly. So, got our macaroni ready. Read your instructions and just go a minute or two shy of what it says, just so you aren't going for that fully cooked state.
A vicious boil.
It's also a pretty good time to get your oven on to heat up. Ours is very, very quick, which is why we don't even think about it anymore. So we're going to put ours on nice and hot. If you have a grill function or even a grill oven function, that is perfect, because it will help to cook it all round with convection and then grill it top down with...
Just get that nice,
crispy, bubbly brown top.
Bubbly cheese on top. So this is very cheese heavy. So that crispy kind of like, the sheet of cooked cheddar on top is the best part about it. And everything else is cooked anyway. So that's really all you're waiting for. You may as well speed up the process, make it either nice and hot or that grill function on top.
Yeah, and if you are grilling, I'll just show you now how my oven is set up. I know that this, if it was set all the way to the top, my my tray is potentially going to be touching the grill grates. So I've just set it just below, but as high up as I can possibly get it, just so it's as close to the grill as it can be.
So we've got some lovely British mature aged cheddar. You can use, cheddar is the classic for mac and cheese.
It's just a little bit sharp, but like really, really good flavour.
Yeah.
It's not too dry
Yeah,
either.
not too dry either.
So yeah,
number one.
not the time to whip out your really aged cheeses. This is just like not too dry, not too wet. So not good for mozzarella, for example. It's very, very wet.
And you'd lose it completely. Yeah. Too creamy,
my friend.
If you have a monster grater like we do at home, if you're like me, you're very likely to grate your thumb. So one, be careful. The thing that I always say, if you don't grate a lot, I don't know what people do at home, it is only sharp on the way down. So you don't need to push in and like all the way. You can just go down, 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 over
then you
and
don't
over
smear it
and
all the
over
way
and
up.
over again. Because then if you're pulling it on the way up, you're just smooshing cheese onto the front, which you don't really need to do. The blade is only on the way down. And do just be careful of your thumb. As always, you can see I've got all my fingers back here, and I'm kind of just rotating it so it's always just as far away from me as possible, basically.
And having said not to use mozzarella, if you do have a couple of old odds and ends of cheese, it's a really, really nice way to use them up because they'll just melt into the sauce. As long as I say stick to mainly cheddar is the best, but if you have other bits and pieces, they'll also be really nice.
Chuck it all in.
Mix it all well, really
What
together.
else can we mac and cheese? You can
In terms of
cheese
veggies?
anything. Yeah, we've got, what else? We can do so much.
So
You
of
can
course
put-
we're doing the cauliflower cheese tonight, but you can sneak in all sorts of veggies in, especially if you've got some fussy kids. You can add some peas, you can add some courgettes, green beans, anything which kind of suits well to steaming and a quick bake in the oven and can go with
Absolutely.
the creamy sauce. You're good to go.
It's good to go. We also sometimes, if we're feeling a little bit fancy, or
Oh, yeah.
if you froze your tomato sauce from the pasta nights or
Last week?
we would sometimes run a little spiral, like a little marble of a nice rich tomato sauce, just to kind of cut through that really creaminess of the mac and cheese.
It's not traditional, but I'm now like pretty much converted.
I'm pretty sold with the tomato sauce running through the mac
And
and cheese.
it's not a lot. It's not like a weird red mac
Yeah.
and cheese. It's just like a little tiny feathering of tomato sauce through it, maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons, like a small amount.
Yeah.
And then it's right in the center. So you go a little bit of mac, tomato sauce, more mac on top, and then cheese. And it's just like this lovely little je ne sais quoi.
Water is calling you, Millie.
It's now at a rolling boil. So we have these big bubbles. So it's ready for my pasta. So now I can salt it. I'm going to go a generous handful.
Ooh.
Woo! Good bit of salt, because if this is not seasoned, my pasta will be quite bland. So in goes my macaroni, my little elbows. And you have to use macaroni for macaroni and cheese. Otherwise, it's just a pasta bake. I don't make the rules.
If you do this with other cheese, it's with other pasta, it's just called a pasta bake with bechamel.
So we use this pasta all the time, so I know it does stick if I tend to just put it in. So make sure you give it a quick stir. And this one also is a little sticky, so I just stir it every now and then when I'm boiling it. So I'm going to put my timer on for about 5 minutes. Because this will cook in about 7. So
Yeah.
I want to go just shy of the cooking time, and when I take it out, I'll see a little white ring in the center, and that means that it's ready to be drained, because we don't want it to be too cooked.
We're looking for al dente.
so quick.
Yeah, I know.
Just blinked
All
and that
the way
was done.
down.
I've got to take you home with me.
So I think your recipe for the mac and cheese, it says al dente. So we're not going for full cooked. So if whatever your packet says, if it says 8 minutes, maybe go for 6, something like that.
Yeah, a minute or two shy is
Yeah,
really
we
good.
want it to be just under, just so that it can finish cooking in the oven.
And if it's an Italian brand, they often actually go a little
it
shy on the
quite
cooking times
the
anyway, because they
classic.
will go for a less cooked pasta. So also something to keep in mind. So we want to keep it at its rolling boil, but if it suddenly looks like it's creeping up sides of the pot because of all the starches in there, we might just turn it down a touch, down to maybe 10 to 12 out of 14.
In terms of your tin for what you're using for your mac and cheese, you kind of want it to be on the full side. So if you're unsure, go a little bit smaller because you want it to be like nice and full. We're talking about we want to keep it like moist and stuff. So you don't want like a little thin layer of mac and cheese. You want it to be quite nice and full so that it keeps its moisture inside and it's still nice and creamy and everything.
And it will also look really, really saucy, like almost too saucy. And then once it bakes, it will just stay lovely and gooey just because we did all that extra bechamel. So while it looks like a lot, you actually need it. Otherwise,
So for us, again, we do this with a 500 gram packet of pasta, and we know that this is like a pretty good size. If you're unsure,
probably 8 people as a side, maybe 6 very hungry people.
6 very
and
hungry
it's really,
kids.
really rich, so you don't necessarily need that much, especially if you're a full-grown adult.
And if you chuck a lot of veggies in there, like that we
Bulk
talked
it out.
about before, you can just make a full meal of it. Why not? Have it for
That's what we're gonna be doing
lovely
tonight.
night. Yeah, we're going to be eating it for dinner tonight. And we're doing them separate. So we're doing collie and mac separately, but you could actually just combine them, pop them all in one, fill it up, maybe do a little bit
collie
of
mac and
extra
cheese.
collie mac and cheese.
But you could also put in broccoli if you want a little bit green. Do all sorts.
Yeah, it's whatever you have. So we know this dish is going to be pretty good, but you don't have to make it all in one. You can make 2, just whatever dishes you have at home, but keep it on the deeper side. So the deeper it is, the more moisture will keep in as it cooks.
So I've got my sauce that's thickened while it's sat. We're going to add in cheese to mine, and we want to do this off the heat so the cheese doesn't split. That just means that you're going to get little oily parts on the top. So you want it to be like a lovely, glossy, smooth sauce.
Is this another measure with your heart?
Technically it's 2 packed cups, but Let's see how we go.
Inside?
We're going to add half the cheese into our sauce and half on top. So that's going to give it a cheesy flavoured sauce, but also a little bit crispiness on the top. And all you need is just that residual heat to melt the cheddar. You don't need to have this on like full blast. Ooh!
Oh, bye. It's almost like it went off the edge, except this time it just went on the thing.
So I'm going to just mix this in until it's melted. You can see it's still really, really hot, which is absolutely fine. And my oven is coming up to temp, which is great.
Up to you if you want to grease this. It comes out pretty well because, like we said, we're going to keep it really nice and moist inside.
We've got lots of butter fat in here.
Yeah, lots of butter fat in there. But if you're happy to, just give it a brush with some butter or some oil or something. Make your washing up a little bit easier at home. We love to do that. It cheats a little bit.
Ooh. I'm just giving my pasta a really quick stir just so it doesn't stick to the tin. Ooh. Okay. Oh gosh.
Everything's going.
Everything's
so we've got
going.
2 more minutes on our pasta. It's still at a very nice high heat, or it's just come off the heat? Yeah, it's just turned itself
Our
off.
hob has just turned itself off.
Yeah.
Ooh. So I'm just going to turn that back on. It's just been off for a sec. Ooh. There we go. Back up to the boil.
Furious boil.
Furious boil.
Can we taste this again with the cheese inside?
Yes, ma'am. Right, so I just want to whisk it to make sure all that cheese is melting, but of course it will definitely also melt in the oven. And I'll just pop this to the back for the camera. Delicious.
I think maybe a pinch of salt. The nutmeg is good. The nutmeg is really good. Really, really good. And the cheese is not horribly, horribly rich. I know it looked like I put a lot in there, but actually it's mellowed out in that creamy flavour. It's kind of added to. Should we put more?
We're going to put a little bit of salt.
A little bit of salt.
Nothing too crazy. I know my pasta is about to be done as well, so this is perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
So 1 pinch. Again, it's over 1 litre of milk. So your 1 pinch doesn't actually have to be a tiny one.
It spreads quite far.
But just to be safe, because I hate over-salting things. I know we say we love an extra pinch of salt, but both Maddie and I do really hate over-salted
little by
food.
little, just little by little.
So whisk it in to dissolve it and then have another taste. Oh, and now I can taste cheddar.
Yeah,
It's
it tastes a lot more cheesy.
Needs one more.
And in terms of the consistency at this stage, it's still not super, super thick. You can see it's thinned out quite a bit, even with the cheese inside, which is really good for the mac and cheese. It's going to make sure that it's really not a super dry cake form of mac and cheese. And yes, I will eat this as well.
So, pasta is definitely al dente, which is great. It's where we want it to be.
Should we check the line?
I'm going to drain it. Sorry?
Check the line.
Oh, you want to check the line?
I want to check the
All
line.
right. So, what Maddie means, I'm just going to cut it in half. Maddie's going to cut it in half. I'm going to drain my pasta, just so she can show you that it's definitely on the underside.
All right, let's see what this baby looks like. Okay, Millie did talk about the 1 centimetre, the little white line, and actually this is a perfect view. Look at that, hold on. You can see a tiny, tiny white line. That's al dente for you. That's a perfect little show of what al dente is. So that's perfect. We can drain.
Yep, so I'm going to grab myself, just so I don't have to show you over the sink, a big, big pot with a nice colander over it. I'm going to pour as much water as I can. And then I'm going to use my original pot to mix everything together. So
Good mix about.
try and get a friend or something, but it's good to have really, really sturdy setup on your colander.
Ooh. Watch any
Steam.
Oh, I was going to say loose pasta being sent to the floor gods out there.
Right, so nice clean pots. In goes my pasta. I'm going to just shimmy, shimmy, shake off that extra water. And back into my pot it goes. And now we're going to mix in all of our delicious cheddar.
All that bechamel.
I'm going to ask my friend to do the mixing. So we're going to pour this in, and it will look like a lot, but it will just be like wonderful and gooey and delicious. And I'm going to scrape my pot.
That is beautiful. Never in my life have I seen anything more beautiful than that.
Right, there we go.
All right, so in terms of pasta to bechamel ratio, that is pretty good. So it's loose, like you can see it's It feels pretty sloppy, but there's plenty of pasta in there, so it's a kind of like a good amount to match it. If you see like, say for some reason you've put all your bechamel in and all you can see on the top is just like a thick layer of bechamel, you either need to like take a little bit out, add something else in, so either we're talking about other veggies or a bit more pasta or something.
But otherwise this will continue to thicken as it sits, so it might look quite loose, but it will thicken up and then it'll just be like perfect ratio.
Oh yeah, when this goes in the oven, it will kind of just set a little bit more. Do you want to get that spatula and I'm going to pour poor baby.
So all of our delicious mac. Ooh.
It's almost like we picked the perfect tray.
That's pretty perfect. And yeah, if you add in extra veggies, that's definitely going to bulk this out as well. Yeah, nearly there.
Beautiful.
And this is just such a comforting dish. This was actually one of the first things I learned how to make for myself because I loved cheese. So yeah, quite a full circle moment. Right, scrape that off and we're going to add our last bits of cheddar just as evenly as we can so we have a nice layer over the top.
We do have extra backup cheese if we need it.
Everyone needs backup cheese in their life, I think.
Emergency cheese.
I think we will need a little bit extra actually.
You're saying that a whole block of cheese wasn't enough?
No.
More cheese?
More cheese. Oh yeah, thank you. So just a little bit more to go edge to edge.
And remember, this is going to get nice and dark and caramelized cheddar.
And also, this will serve many, many people. Yes, it looks like a lot of cheese, but it's not. It's not.
Just divide it.
Divide it by like at least 6
10,
to 8 people.
12, 14.
Sure. Right, so this is looking pretty lovely, but it will look 100 times better once it goes in the oven. So we're going to begin grilling this, and now we'll move our minds over to cauliflower cheese track. So let me just...
Beautiful in the oven, and again we move on to cauliflower.
And right under that grill as well, not in the center if you're using your grill function. Okay, thank you, madam.
So I think the recipe says 1 good sized cauliflower. We did not have a good sized cauliflower, so we've got two very baby cauliflowers. So it is kind of depending on your dish. So this recipe, it's only once times the bechamel. If you've got, you can see inside these leaves, they're actually the 2 smallest cauliflowers I've ever seen in my life. So we're going to use 2 babies. If you've got a monster, you definitely don't need it. And again, you can chop and change what veggies go in. It doesn't just have to be your cauliflower.
And nice sustainability tip. Firstly, I'll show you why we won't use this particular leaf. When I snap this, see, it's quite hard to snap in the first place. It's actually full of fiber. So it's going to be a little bit too tough to have in our in our cauliflower cheese. But actually, if you cut it nice and thin like this, it's really lovely in a stir fry. Just give it a really good wash. So you're just cutting straight across those fibers. It makes it much, much more tender.
And we roast them all the time.
So good. They get really crispy.
Yeah, really lovely. Just with a little bit of olive oil and a pinch of salt when it comes. So really similar to what we did with our roast veg. So really nice high oven. But these take like 6-7 minutes.
We're doing it later on in the session as well. I'll show you lovely grilled roasted salad.
Yeah. So may not be able to use them today, but in the future, yes.
I'm going to cut off the first couple of very, very tough leaves. It kind of depends on your cauliflower as well. Sometimes you get lovely young tender leaves and they are perfect for this. So towards the bottom, I've definitely got some nice ones here that I'm going to keep. But you shouldn't really get rid of them. They do have really good flavour, especially if they're on the fresh side.
They taste delicious.
They do taste delicious. And when you've got such a tiny one, you'll end up with no cauliflower cheese.
I know.
Just,
all that leaves for this. But they're happy, healthy babies. And again, you can chop, but realistically, the easiest part for the cauliflower is if you just break away the florets. We are going to chop them to kind of have them matching in size and in kind of edible portions. So that's, for me, is not really an edible portion. That's quite big. But the easiest bit is if you just break it first, and then you can chop them into smaller pieces if you need to. Sometimes they just have like these perfect size florets, like they just have lots like this. That's perfect. Like that's the perfect floret. You don't need to do anything with it.
So I'm gonna do mine slightly differently. I like to just cut most of the way through the core and then just pull it apart. You just get slightly less of the like tiny little florets everywhere, but both are fine, to be honest. That's just me being weird about getting tiny bits of dust everywhere. Everyone has their thing. And don't throw the core. Again, if you're doing this with broccoli, it's the exact same thing. They come from the same plant family. The core is really delicious. It can just be a little bit tough. So you might just want to peel the exterior stems. And then I'm just going to chop mine a tiny bit smaller than I have with everything else.
So that it steams quicker.
Yeah, so it all cook at the same time. So nice even florets.
I didn't really have a core on mine, to be honest.
Oh,
I know.
Lucky you. So I've got quite a big core here to make up for Maddie's lack of.
I had 0 core and Millie has it all.
So yeah, you can cut from the top down and just push them off. Or as Maddie was doing, you can just snip them off with your hands.
Yeah, I'm going to break down my slightly bigger florets. Again, we want this kind of all in the mac and cheese, in the cauliflower cheese. So you don't want a huge bit of cauliflower kind of sticking out the top like a little tree. So make them, on the smaller side.
So I'm just going to dice up my thick bits of the stem because they're still really delicious, but they are a little bit chunky. And they're much, much denser. They'll take a bit more time to cook. With my leaves, I'm just going to break these in half. I
was going to say, if you've got one of those monster cauliflowers we were talking about, I know they have huge, like really, really thick, dense stalks. So you'll need to cut them, quite small and quite fine so that they're steaming at the same rate. But you get almost a whole other cauliflower out of the stalk. So definitely use it.
So I'm going to introduce you to steaming method number 1, and we'll show you another way to do it tomorrow. So this is going to be using a colander with a really tight fitting lid set over a pot that fits really well. So we're trapping our steam. So it's, in order to steam things, you do need steam. So we're going to get about 1 inch of water in here. Depends how big your pot is as well. But in here, that's probably like a cup of water. I'm going to put this on really, really high, as hot as my stove can go, and it should come to the boil pretty quickly. And then once it's at a vigorous rolling boil, we're going to put our cauliflower in here. And then we're going to steam it for about 5 minutes. So just to speed it up, I'm going to put the lid on, and that's going to create a little bit of pressure and help it come up to the boil faster. But this is just one way of steaming. So the way we're going to show you tomorrow is just this way without the steamer. So you'll put your cauliflower, your broccoli, whatever you're steaming, exactly straight in the pot, and then with the lid on. However, it's much, much easier to fish it out if you have got one of these. So quite a useful piece of kit to have on hand. So we're going to wait till this comes up to a boil. This is a little more nutritious than just putting it in boiling water because you keep a lot of the nutrients in the veggies. And also you don't need to use any extra salts or anything, no added fats, so it's nice and simple,
I
healthy.
accounted for the salts in my bechamel, so this is kind of good to go straight in. And again, dish-wise, we've got something that we hope will match. Even though we do the same recipe a lot, we've got a slightly smaller dish. Because I did think that the cauliflowers were really, really small. So we're going to see how we go.
It's going to be a good fit, I think.
It's going to be a good fit.
So this has actually formed a slight skin on top. That's just because the milk has sat with the starches. It's fine, you can just
whisk it out.
Whisk it out, and it's thickened up quite a lot. We might add a tiny splash of milk, but to be honest, it is going to thicken up in the oven again, and the cauliflowers will add a touch of water once we steam it. So
we're going to add that little dash of cheese in. I'm doing half. So half your cup, or one packed of cup inside, and then we'll put that a little bit more on top. And again, we're just melting it. We don't need to cook it at this stage, otherwise it kind of releases all the fats on top. And it's really weird.
We have steam. So we are ready to go with our cauliflower cheese. I'm going to pop all my cauli in here. Again, if you cut everything evenly, it will cook at the same time. So you're not going to be having to test 8 pieces at once. Leaves and all, especially those lovely young tender leaves. So be careful with the steam, it's quite an easy way to burn yourself. So lift it off, slide it in, lock it in, and pop the lid on. If you can see a big puff of steam, you're doing the right thing. It means you're going to get lots and lots of heat generated. And we're going to keep it nice and high as well. Don't turn it down at this point, you need to have high heat to keep generating that steam. So I'm just going to move this to the side so you can see what's going on. Ooh.
Big steamy noises. I'm pretty sure our grill is working
overtime.
Super hard because I can smell caramelized cheese, which is the goods. So I'm going to bring it out. We're going to have a quick look at it. If you do have your oven on really high like us, don't stick your face in it right away, even though it smells really good.
Whoa, looking good.
Look at that. So in terms of colour, it's pretty close. We're gonna drop it down just the tiniest bit because we want this to kind of even out. That's had like the cheese is kind of shrunk into the middle bit, so we're gonna get some color on the rest of it. But it is pretty close. So this nice, like, I think everyone loves it, right? That like that crackly, like golden cheese, kind of around the outsides, not too much in the center. So we're gonna put this in for another few minutes just to finish off. And then we're going to pop our cauliflower in as well. But we're wanting more colour than that. So this is the goods, and we want it everywhere.
And to be even as well.
And to be evenly cooked, yes.
But she's a beauty.
She is a beauty.
And we'll get more beautiful. So just grab yourself your baking dish, set yourself up. We're going to have one last taste of our bechamel just while our cauliflower is cooking. Make sure it's still extra delicious and has enough salt and enough cheese, perhaps.
And more cheese? Did you say more cheese?
We'll see. Let's taste it. And it's still steaming hot, even though it's sat on the stove for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it will stay hot for a little while. And even baking it will stay hot for at least half an hour. So you can cook it a little ahead of time. And we can see, very, very thick. It's barely even dropping off the spoon. So I think a touch more milk will be good.
I'm accounting a little bit for the water from the cauliflower. Okay. Did I season it well?
You did season it pretty well. I think it could have more cheese.
More cheese? Okay.
It's called cauliflower cheese.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm adding more cheese. Measure
Millie's
with your
rules.
heart. Yeah, Millie's the boss.
And I will say a packed cup. That just means you need to press it down really well, so it's not just like
we're being
air
generous
plus
with the
cheese cup.
cheese. As you said, it is called a cauliflower cheese. It's not called a cauliflower with some milk.
You're so right, Maddie.
So I'm just stirring that extra bit through. We're going to give it one more taste. I think the salt was pretty good as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. And in terms of thickness, yeah, potentially a dash. A dash of milk.
Very, very small splash, just because it is definitely way beyond that coating consistency. Like,
Beautiful.
it's maybe 2-3 tablespoons of milk, like barely even 50 ml, so really, really small amount.
And kind of, there's a few different things where you might need a really thick bechamel. Bechamel is also kind of a really similar base as for your souffles. They start from this. You can do a souffle like this. You could do a cheese souffle with the same bechamel that we have.
Oh yeah, and I want to say we're using whole milk tonight, just because it's got nice fat content. It's really rich and got really good flavour. I wouldn't bother necessarily making this with skim or semi-skim because I just don't think it tastes very good.
It's cheese.
You're adding lots of cheese in, forget that. So yeah, I think it's much, much more delicious with whole milk. You could maybe get away with semi-skim, but skim is just like white water, so.
Well, it's not that different
Not
anyway.
so delicious.
All right.
How are we doing?
Cheese is good.
Good.
We're going to
Well,
stab
let's
our
hear.
cauliflowers and see where they're
We
at.
can stab our cauliflowers now, just have a little check. So I'll bring this over here so we can, it's just going over a patch of water, which is why it's making lots of
scary
noise.
noises. Oh, you want to turn off?
So again, just put this onto something that is heat safe. And we're going to go in. Oh, I think we might be done. Oh, maybe another minute. So when I go into this one, it's very, very slowly, let me do it one more time, fairly slowly dropping off. Some of them are a little more cooked than others. So what I'm going to do is just like the quickest little shimmy. Just to even it out, pop the lid back on. I'm going to give it one more minute, I think.
One more quick
The
minute.
nice thing with any kind of cauliflower, broccoli, cabbagey thing, you can smell them as soon as they're cooked. So it's starting to smell like broccoli and cauliflower. So we're going to give it one more minute and then we'll toss it in the cheese sauce and put it in our baking tray, top with some extra cheese, and into the oven it goes for its final cook.
So tonight we're kind of doing just this. So it could be your main dish. It could be a side dish. If you want to freeze it, the best point is probably before the oven. You can freeze it after it's cooked. But if you want it to kind of, because what will potentially happen on the other side is your bechamel and your cheese kind of splits and goes a little, it gets a little bit lumpy and starts to split and stuff. So
we have frozen bechamel before, and what I did just before we used it again is I just gave it a really quick whiz or a very, very vigorous whisk just to bring the texture back because it'll look a tiny bit.
But the best,
lumpy,
best place if you're unsure is so make a double, make a kilo of mac and cheese, get your 6 oven glass dishes out, and then freeze it. Anything that you want before you bake it, and then so you take it out, you defrost it in your fridge overnight, sprinkle it with cheese and cook it like that. Maybe even add like a dash of milk or a dash of water just to give it a bit more like steam and moisture. But freezing it before you bake it is the best place to kind of get the best out of it on the other end. And it
But to
is
be honest,
delicious. You wouldn't be able to
it's
tell.
a fairly quick dish to
yeah.
make. You could very easily make it start to finish in about half an hour if you're just making
Easily.
one.
We've done
and we're
two
doing
tonight.
2 at the same time. And so I don't think we often wouldn't say it's worth making a bechamel ahead of time just because it's so quick. So, lifting off, it smells like cauliflower in here. And when I grab one, you should test one of your bigger florets. Ooh, it won't even stick to my knife.
Great.
So it's sliding
Done.
straight off, definitely cooked. And they've taken on a slight translucent look, which is another sign I know it's cooked. And I'm going to shake off as much water as I can.
Put it in here.
So 2 ways. You can just pour your cauliflower in and then drape your sauce on top. Or you can do it mac and cheese style and toss it all together.
All good options.
I don't want to break up the florets too much.
So we're going to go
I might just go straight in. And we're just going to be very generous and very even in the way that we coat it with our sauce.
These are very nifty for getting everything out, but if you don't, just use your spoon. And again, we're going to put some extra cheese on top.
Oh, look at that.
Beautiful.
You missed the spot.
I'm going to give it a mix.
So even if you had a little bit of cheese that hasn't melted yet, because maybe your bechamel cooled off a touch, it will definitely melt in the oven, so don't worry.
I'm just going to give it just a slight little jiggle around, just to make sure the sauce is going like from the top to the bottom and kind of coating everything lightly. You don't need to give it a massive mix. It will go mostly everywhere, and like Neil said, we don't want to break up the florets too much. But just to make sure that there's kind of sauce, there's not like just cauliflower touching the bottom of the tin straight.
Shall I cheese you?
Yes, please.
And it's really nice to use a mature cheddar as well for this. Anything that's on the mild side just won't have nearly as much flavour. And to be honest, with all that milk, it kind of dulls out the flavour. So if you don't normally love mature cheddar, this is a good place to try it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I'm expecting some of those leaves that are poking out to get a little bit crispy.
Yes.
And you could also put some breadcrumbs on top of this. I think that would be quite lovely.
If you're like me and you've got a lot of
Stale bread.
bread ends in your freezer, this is a great time to use them. Fry them up, put them on top, crispy tops.
Right,
Beautiful, straight in the oven.
straight in the oven. I'm
Yes,
going to give
ma'am.
my hands a quick wash.
I'm going to bring out the other mac and cheese. It should be really, really close. Like I said, our oven is on pretty high, so 2-3 minutes can do a lot of damage.
Would you like the oven gloves? There you go.
Touch more. Lovely. We're getting to that lovely part of, you can see the golden is starting to creep into the center, which is pretty good. It can still take a few more minutes. Again, this is a part of the flavor, like that brown is part of the flavor of the dish. So we're going to pop it in just for a few more minutes and recap what we've done today and everything else. I feel like there's more that you can cheese. You can cheese everything.
So we have made a bechamel today, which is just a fancy word for white sauce. But a bechamel, at its most simplest, is equal parts fat and flour. So whether you're using butter, which is a little more expensive and solid at room temp, or if you're using oil, which we did tonight, which is neutral in flavour, which we're going to cover up with cheese anyway. So equal parts fat and flour, mixing it together till it's smooth, and then we poured in milk just until it was also smooth.
All off the heat.
All off the heat. So right.
So right.
And then we seasoned it with salt, nutmeg. If you want to, you can add some pepper. Some people like white pepper for this because it doesn't have such a strong colour. Or you can add black pepper if that doesn't bother you at all.
You can just
Depends
stick
on-
to it with nutmeg.
Yeah.
Go nuts on the nutmeg.
And then lots of nice mature cheddar, just so it's got wonderful flavour. So a little bit in the sauce and also a little bit on top. Then we did boiling pasta once more. So we had a nice big pot of water, add a rolling boil, put in a big handful of salt. Once it came back up to the boil, which is about 20 seconds later, we dumped in a whole pack of pasta, gave it a really good stir to stop it from sticking on the bottom. Yes. And we cooked it till it was al dente.
Al dente.
So don't fully cook your pasta.
Not the full packet cook this time, which
Yeah.
we did stress a lot, I think, the first night when we did pasta.
Yeah, has to be properly cooked, but it will finish cooking in the oven. So while we made our cauliflower cheese, that mac and cheese has been in the oven for 15 minutes.
15.
So it will have continued cooking all that way. So it should come out pretty
good. Yeah.
So we boiled our pasta, we drained it really, really well, got rid of the extra water.
Yeah, I think it's really...
tossed our sauce through.
You want to get that extra water off because otherwise you get water soup on the bottom of your tin, which is not very nice for mac and cheese. You want to give it a good toss.
Yeah, so we seasoned our sauce really well, made sure it was not too salty before we added our cheddar because it's full of salt as well. stir it in off the heat, very important so you don't get a split bechamel. And then we mix everything together and then pour it into a nice big roasting tin.
And put a wholesome amount of cheese on top.
Wholesome amount of cheese on top, under a nice hot grill if you've got one, but if not, just a really hot oven will also do the job.
Do the trick.
Will just take a little bit longer. Absolutely. And you'll get more of that all-round heating rather than straight from the top.
Yeah. And then we pretty much did the same for the cauliflower cheese, just a different method. So instead of boiling the pasta, we did that nice steam for the cauliflower. And again, it kind of similarly to the pasta, you don't need to go full steam all the way. You can like make it have that little bit before you, but you don't want it hard in the center because it's not going to take too long to cook in the oven.
So top tips, grab yourself a little bit of extra milk. Make sure you're not on your last dregs because you may need a little extra just to thin it to the right consistency, which we all know now is coating. So just coats the back of the spoon really nicely. It sort of drops off. And the idea is, especially with your cauliflower cheese, you'll pour it over and it will drape really nicely over it, but it's not just a lump on top and it's also not just running straight off it. So two very important things is consistency.
I think we ended up adding plenty more milk to ours. I'm looking at what we had in our extra.
A cup between our two recipes extra.
So the recipe by itself is quite thick and quite dry. So don't be shy on adding that extra bit of milk, and also don't be shy on the cheese either. I think we took that one to heart today because we have to feed us,
and the crew.
We've got a lovely crew here filming us who are very, very invested in this mac and cheese. So we're making it a good one tonight, and I hope you are too. We've seen a ton of photos so far. So if you are making mac and cheese or you're making cauliflower cheese with us tonight, you have to send us the photos again. You can always tag us at Cookery School London, #CookForVictory. But we love to see you guys are doing so well. And if tonight's your first night, absolutely send us a photo. If it's your sixth night, send us a photo. We absolutely
keep up the good habits, you know?
Keep up the good habits every single night. You have to.
So tag us on Instagram at Cookery School London, at that #CookForVictory. But yeah, it's always like very encouraging to see that you're also making these things at home. And I think we can dish.
I think we could dish this up. Now, this is approximately 6 million degrees.
So right.
So it's still going to be quite, we talked about it being kind of, it will solidify a little bit. This will thicken a lot as it sets. We're going to scoop out a little bit now just to see what it looks like inside. It will have dried up a little bit, but it's still going to be pretty...
Oh, no, it's set up
pretty
nice,
solid.
Actually.
So yeah, it will solidify a little bit as it cools, just because of the cheese, like all that bechamel.
Molten.
It is... Molten is the right word. It is hot.
Oh my god, it smells so good.
So we're going to scoop some out now so that we have a chance to eat it before we go.
And we are like little hobbits. We've already had first lunch.
Yep.
And I'm still hungry.
Yep. So this is going to be the perfect dinner.
Can you grab a spoon?
I'm not sure I can eat that for another 5 years.
Just gonna.
Yeah, a little one.
Have a little bite.
Hopefully you're at the same stage. We seasoned this pretty well, so it should be absolutely delicious.
But yeah, if you do have a little tomato sauce left over for whatever reason, try it. It's actually very surprising, and a little bit of acidity really cuts through just how rich and sometimes stodgy this can be. So if you haven't seasoned it properly as well, it can be really, really overwhelmingly rich.
That
oh yeah,
caramelized cheese is very, very tasty.
But also the pasta is not overcooked. It's really nice. It's still got good texture.
I would say it's spot on in terms of cooking. So that al dente is quite
really, really overdone and just stodgy and claggy and thick and heavy.
Sloppy.
Delightful.
So this is great.
Another job well done. We're going to show you how our
collie is doing. It's a little bit behind, but we'll see how we go.
I'm going to dish up a good portion for someone.
Our oven is working quite hard tonight. It's not too bad, you know. We've got our lovely colour, so kind of like aiming for the exact same thing, that colour, it's all just flavour here. So this lovely colour that we've got here, again, probably maybe another 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less if you pump your oven up to the highest temperature it could possibly go, or put it on grill. This one certainly cooks very quick. This is not going to be too far behind. And again, even though it's quite sloppy, this is already starting to set as well, even though it had all that excess water from the cauliflower. So
we've just cranked up our grill just a little bit, just so we can get it nice and brown. And yeah, that is our cauliflower cheese. If you want to make it a little bit healthier, a little bit lighter, you can literally just combine these two dishes, steam your cauliflower, cook your pasta separately, combine them all together with your sauce, and you've got like a nice best of both worlds, a little bit lighter, but also still really delicious and gooey.
Combine them the next day as well. It's like your the minestrone that we talked about, the lasagna that we'll make on one of the last days, tastes better the next day. You know, it just gets better with time.
That's so funny. I like it fresh.
If you've ever reheated cheese in a bechamel, I think it tastes way better the next day. I think it's much more. So
the nutmeg probably gets a bit stronger.
Yeah, this will have a few good days in the fridge. But yeah, you can feed an army on mac and cheese and all your bits and bobs in the fridge that you need to use.
And really, all you need, even from the pasta all the way to like start to finish, is just flour, a little bit of milk, and lots of cheese.
Yeah, lots of cheese and all
so
the
very
things in your
simple
fridge that you want to get rid of.
And this is something I see all the time in the supermarkets, and it's just full of all sorts of nasty, weird ingredients, and you just don't need it. It's so quick and so simple to make. I think even a child can make this at home with a little bit of supervision, especially with the grilling.
If they're happy on the heat, it's an easy, quick and simple dinner. It can be a supplement. Like you can add some other things to this, and stretch this to quite a few people. It can be a side, it can be a main, it can be whatever you want it to be. It just can be a quick and easy dinner.
Yeah, and you don't have to steam in like a colander setup with a tight-fitting lid. You can use a steamer basket if you have one. I know some people's rice cookers do steaming, or you can just put it in a pot of water with an inch in it and just with a tight-fitting lid on top.
Cool. We're going to bring out this cauliflower pretty much no matter what happens now.
But probably we will grill it for a little bit longer once the camera stops rolling.
Yeah, we're going to bring it out, we'll eat some, we'll have a look at it, we'll see what it's doing. But we are...
That's got a little bit of colour.
That has. Wow, that grill is powerful. It needs a little bit more, just kind of like this one, just to finish off the colour everywhere. But it's 2-3 minutes away at that really high temperature. If you've managed to cook along with us at home, awesome. Fully qualified chef, that's amazing. If not, you can always watch back, you can pause, you can replay it on YouTube, so you don't have to cook it at the exact same rate that we are. You can kind of take your time. We're just showing you that it can be done in an hour easily, but that doesn't mean that you have to. You can take your time, chill out, season it properly.
And I think you judge that consistency perfectly, because now it's this lovely, smooth, silky sauce. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, and it will continue to thicken on standing. So have you done this before?
Have I done this before? I do love collie cheese.
So thank you so much for joining us for another night of Cook for Victory.
Yes.
We've had a lot of fun here tonight. And tomorrow we're going to make amazing mushroom ragu along with a little bit of rice. So we'll recap the concept of thickening with flour, but instead using veg stock instead of milk. So
and we'll do a slightly different steaming method, the cheat steam tomorrow night.
Cheat steam. So thank you so much for joining us for another night. We're now going to enjoy our delicious mac and cheese and collie cheese. But yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Send us your photos. I always throw that in last minute. We loved it.